The pervasive human drive to locate life beyond Earth often directs our gaze outward, toward the nearest exoplanets orbiting stable G-type stars, or perhaps toward the tantalizing chemical signatures in distant protoplanetary disks. Yet the most profound, perhaps most deceptive, frontier lies at the very heart of our own cosmic home, the galactic center. We, terrestrial inhabitants situated approximately 26,000 light-years from this maelstrom, are perpetually viewing the core as a relic, a time-locked diorama sculpted by an epoch long past. What we perceive is not the present state of that inferno but a snapshot, a fossilized image transmitted across 26 millennia of spacetime, each photon carrying news of a past event that has long since concluded or evolved into something utterly unrecognizable. At the nexus of this gravitational fury resides Sagittarius A star, the supermassive black hole, an entity whose mass dwarfs our own sun by a factor of 4 million, an inexorable singularity around which the very fabric of spacetime is violently contorted. Here, gravitational gradients are so steep that stellar bodies entering the innermost zones are subjected to spaghettification, torn apart atom by atom in a process governed by differential tidal forces, while time dilation becomes so extreme that local time effectively grinds to a near standstill relative to our distant, placid existence. For the delicate, carbon-based, water-dependent architecture of human biology, this locale represents an absolute environmental impossibility, cosmic crucible of radiation, extreme energies, and warping reality. Yet, it is precisely this crucible, this environment rendered lethally hostile by natural law, that some theoretical minds speculate might serve as the ultimate, undetectable sanctuary for a civilization whose technological maturity vastly outstrips our own by eons, perhaps millions or even billions of years of iterative development beyond our current understanding of physics and engineering. The premise rests on a fundamental re-evaluation of what constitutes hostile in the context of advanced technological mastery. For a civilization operating at a Kardashev Type 3 level, or perhaps even an unclassified Type 4 or 5, the very forces that obliterate conventional matter, the searing X-ray and gamma radiation fluxes emanating from the accretion disk, the dense, churning plasma, the tightly packed stellar clusters creating dynamic, unpredictable gravitational fields, cease to be threats and transform instead into the perfect, dynamic camouflage. Imagine a species that has transcended the need for stable planetary surfaces, perhaps existing as distributed computational matrices, or utilizing exotic states of matter and energy that thrive in high-energy density environments. The chaos of the galactic core, with its relentless electromagnetic noise, its ceaseless bombardment of high-energy particles, and its inherent gravitational distortions, functions as a natural, all-encompassing invisibility cloak. If such a civilization possessed the fundamental ability to manipulate gravitational fields, a feat we only dimly perceive through the mathematics of general relativity, they could conceivably engineer the local spacetime geometry around their habitats or operational centers. They could actively manage the orbits of nearby stars, perhaps positioning them strategically to enhance shielding or energy capture, a process that would appear to external observers like highly improbable, but natural, stellar clustering. Harvesting energy from the boundary conditions of the black hole itself, perhaps extracting rotational energy via the Penrose process applied on a gargantuan scale, or tapping into the immense power available in the relativistic jets, would provide them with virtually limitless power. Crucially, they would possess the computational capacity and engineering finesse to regulate the thermal emissions, radiation output, and informational leakage from any artificial constructs or processes they employ. In this scenario, what appears to our remote observations as a region of impenetrable, natural cosmic violence, a chaotic furnace, is, in reality, a perfectly tuned system where technological signatures are not merely masked by natural processes but are actively interwoven with and indistinguishable from them. The very electromagnetic cacophony of the core, the intense synchrotron radiation, the pulsar emissions, the blinding light from young, massive stars, is so overwhelming that any focused, coherent signal originating from an artificial source would be utterly subsumed, its energy profile erased, its informational content drowned out by the natural background noise which registers orders of magnitude higher in all detectable frequencies. Enormous, possibly galaxy-scale, engineered structures occupying the core region would not appear as singular anomalies but would be functionally rendered invisible, their thermal signatures homogenized with the ambient temperature of the surrounding plasma, their material composition dissolving into the generalized spectrum of high-energy astrophysical phenomena. To us, it is chaos, to them, it is orchestrated silence. The concept is further cemented by the physical barrier imposed by interstellar dust, a feature often underestimated when considering the visibility of the galactic center. Our common perception of the night sky, even when viewed through our most sophisticated optical telescopes, is woefully incomplete regarding the core region. The plane of the Milky Way is thickly populated with vast clouds of molecular hydrogen, dust grains composed of silicates, carbon compounds, and heavier elements which effectively function as an opaque screen. The attenuation of visible light traveling through this medium is dramatic. The density of this obscuring material means that we are essentially blind to the central galactic plane in optical wavelengths. Our current, best images of Sagittarius A star and the surrounding superdense stellar nursery are not direct visual representations but intricate, painstakingly reconstructed mosaics built from data collected across non-obstructive spectral windows, primarily infrared and radio wavelengths. These wavelengths possess the necessary energy characteristics to penetrate the dust veil, albeit with significant scattering and energy loss. This necessity to rely on non-visible spectra underscores a fundamental limitation. We are seeing the center through a thick, uneven fog. If a civilization were to construct a vast, artificially luminous or thermally active structure near the core, its outgoing signals, whether they be radio waves, optical pulses, or even modulated gravitational waves, would interact violently with this dust medium. Radio signals scatter and disperse, their coherence rapidly degraded. Thermal radiation is absorbed and re-emitted at longer, lower energy wavelengths, blurring the signature against the background glow of dust warmed by distant stars. Any attempt to transmit information coherently across the interface between the dense core and the comparatively clearer intermediate zone of the galaxy would result in a fragmented, distorted mess, entirely unreadable to our current algorithmic processing, which is optimized to detect patterns against the relatively quiescent background of the local galactic arm. Put plainly, we possess no definitive visual record of what the true center of the Milky Way physically looks like. We only possess interpretations of refracted and attenuated energy patterns. If a structure spanning light years, a true megastructure, existed there, our detection capability would be limited to perceiving a subtle, almost imperceptible anomaly in the infrared background or a slight perturbation in the distribution of neutral hydrogen, artifacts that are easily mistaken for natural stellar dynamics or measurement errors. Compounding the physical obstruction is the inescapable barrier of cosmic temporality. The distance of 26,000 light-years mandates an intrinsic time lag in all observations. Every photon reaching the Earth today carries news of an event that transpired 26,000 years ago, roughly coinciding with the beginnings of settled agriculture and the first urban centers in human history. This temporal disparity renders any transient activity utterly invisible. A massive energy burst, a rapid structural modification, or even a communication attempt launched from the galactic center 26,000 years ago would have already concluded its execution, its after effects long since dissipated or stabilized by the core's environment, by the time its light reaches us. In the intervening millennia of transit time, the hypothetical civilization could have undergone complete societal metamorphosis. They may have entirely migrated to a less energy-intensive, perhaps intergalactic, location. They might have achieved a form of post-biological existence, integrating themselves into the underlying quantum field or the structure of spacetime itself, rendering them undetectable by conventional energy or matter detection methods, or, conversely, they might have ceased to exist entirely, victims of internal catastrophe or cosmic evolution, their ancient ruins now merely adding to the background noise of debris and radiation. Furthermore, the tyranny of distance means that any message we might transmit today, aimed at the coordinates of Sagittarius A star, would take another 26,000 years to arrive, a reciprocal delay ensuring that communication, as conventionally conceived, is fundamentally impossible. We are locked in an observational relationship with the past, unable to affect or even observe the present state of any hypothetical entity residing there. The communication channel is not merely noisy, it is severed by the very geometry of the universe. This leads naturally to the philosophical and strategic implications encapsulated by the dark forest hypothesis, popularized by modern science fiction but rooted in logical survival imperatives for expanding intelligence. If the dark forest axiom holds, that in a universe where resources are finite and the speed of light imposes unavoidable communication delays, the safest strategy for any civilization is absolute, proactive silence, as revealing one's location invites preemptive destruction by competitors, then the galactic center becomes the ultimate strategic hiding spot. The core's natural attributes perfectly align with this survival doctrine. Thermal signatures, the telltale sign of industrial activity or large-scale energy processing, are instantly lost within the incandescent radiation field generated by the accretion disk and nearby massive stars. Any organized electromagnetic signals, the very beacon we utilize in our SETI efforts, are guaranteed to be randomized, scattered, or absorbed by the dense plasma and dust before they can traverse the vast interarm void to reach less advanced neighbors like ourselves. Movements, gravitational fluctuations caused by large-scale engineering projects, masked by the ceaseless, violent gravitational distortions inherent to orbiting a supermassive black hole, slight adjustments to stellar positions become indistinguishable from natural orbital perturbations in such a chaotic neighborhood. Even the construction of colossal megastructures, which might otherwise betray themselves through irregular light curves or gravitational lensing effects, could be cloaked by the very mechanism of the black hole's event horizon itself, utilizing gravitational lensing not for observation but for deliberate obfuscation, bending ambient light around the artificial construct so that from an external perspective, only the distorted, uniform silhouette of the black hole's shadow is visible. For us, looking in, the result is eternal darkness, not because nothing is there, but because everything is intentionally obscured by sophisticated, layered defensive measures that mimic the environment's inherent properties. A particularly unsettling piece of supporting evidence, albeit highly speculative, arises from the direct observation of Sagittarius A star itself. When the Event Horizon Telescope collaboration successfully resolved the first direct image of the black hole's shadow in 2022, the resulting data presented certain unexpected characteristics to astrophysicists accustomed to theoretical simulations of accretion flows. While the general structure confirmed predictions, some researchers noted an unusually uniform, almost placid, radiation pattern emanating from the brightest parts of the accretion ring. Theoretical models often predict more frequent, dramatic, and asymmetric flares, representing instabilities in the superheated plasma spiraling into the void, particularly given the expected complexity of the environment near a black hole of this mass. The observed image, while incredibly high energy, suggested a degree of regulated smoothness, a surprising absence of the expected violent, chaotic outbursts. One intriguing, though radical, proposal suggests that what we are witnessing is not the raw, uncontrolled feeding frenzy of the black hole, but rather a deliberately flattened and stabilized accretion flow, not by the natural physics of magnetohydrodynamics alone, but by an external, intelligent regulation system. If an entity with mastery over extreme gravitational and plasma physics were to harness the black hole as a primary energy source, the most efficient mode of energy extraction would likely involve stabilizing the inflow, preventing runaway instabilities that lead to energy loss through unpredictable flares and maintaining a steady, manageable power output. In this context, the eerie cleanliness of the image might not be a testament to the limitations of our instruments, but rather a testament to the success of an intelligence in domesticating the gravitational engine at the galaxy's heart, making its energy output unnervingly regular and predictable enough, perhaps, to seem entirely natural to an observer operating on a much lower technological plateau. The most extreme hypothesis ventures beyond the mere concealment of localized structures and posits that the entire apparent architecture of the Milky Way galaxy might itself be a gargantuan, deliberate megastructure, an artifact of unimaginably ancient engineering. This concept, while bordering on pure speculation, draws a tenuous connection to the concept of a Dyson sphere, scaled up to galactic dimensions. If a hyper-advanced civilization, perhaps the progenitors of the current inhabitants of the core, achieved a true mastery over galactic dynamics, they could potentially utilize the central black hole not just as a power source, but as a colossal orbital regulator. They might employ massive gravitational field emitters or exotic matter manipulation to subtly adjust the orbits of stars across the spiral arms, ensuring the long-term stability and efficiency of the galactic system for their purposes, perhaps maximizing the harvesting efficiency of stellar energy across billions of light-years. They could regulate the overall energy flows, ensuring that stellar nurseries are ignited and extinguished at optimal rates, and perhaps even manage the spiral arm structure itself over cosmic timescales. In this radical viewpoint, the observed rotation curves of the galaxy, which currently necessitate the invocation of non-baryonic dark matter to explain the observed velocity distribution of stars, could be partially or wholly explained by the introduction of controlled, engineered gravitational influences woven into the galactic structure, the dark matter being, in essence, the mass-energy equivalent of their control mechanism. The observed cosmic background radiation, the faint residual glow from the early universe, could similarly be subtly modulated or utilized as a background energy sink. From this perspective, the Milky Way ceases to be a natural collection of astronomical objects. It becomes a colossal, ancient machine, with Sagittarius A star functioning as its central, immensely powerful, and tightly controlled power core. We, as inhabitants of a small, tenuous spiral arm, would then be akin to microscopic motes of dust clinging to the outer casing, or perhaps thriving within a minor, unmonitored subsystem of this titanic architecture. Our very existence might be an accidental byproduct of the structure's operation, akin to the minor chemical reactions occurring on the cooling fins of a supercomputer. This longevity argument is perhaps the most compelling rationale for assuming extreme advancement. The oldest stars, population 3 and early population 2 stars, tend to be found in the tightly packed halo and, critically, within the central bulge and near the galactic center itself. This region preserves the oldest stellar populations, those formed earliest in the galaxy's history, containing lower metallicity, fewer elements heavier than hydrogen and helium, because fewer previous generations of stars had exploded to seed the interstellar medium. If intelligent life emerged in this primordial stellar environment, that life could possess an antiquity measured in billions of years, vastly predating the formation of our Sun, which is a relatively young, third-generation star. A civilization that has existed for, say, 9 billion years longer than humanity, an entity that has survived the volatile youth of the galaxy, would possess a technological scaffolding beyond our wildest comprehension. Such an entity would not be bound by our current understanding of particle physics or information theory. They might manipulate gravity not just locally, but across stellar distances, perhaps achieving mastery over the fundamental forces to the extent that they can bend spacetime to their will for propulsion or habitat creation. They might reside not on solid surfaces but within regions near the black hole's ergosphere, utilizing the frame-dragging effects for energy extraction and computation, or they could exist as non-physical entities, perhaps pure information structures or complex quantum states integrated into the background spacetime foam itself, effectively achieving a form of technological immortality. For such beings, the entire evolutionary history of our solar system, the rise of complex multicellular life on Earth, and the entire span of human technological advancement, from the first controlled fire to the first radio signals, would be perceived as a fleeting, nearly instantaneous flicker, a barely perceptible increase in background noise emanating from a remote, unremarkable spiral arm. Our most advanced scientific endeavors would appear to them as the rudimentary scribblings of infants trying to decipher the instruction manual of a machine whose core mechanisms they cannot even perceive. Therefore, the conclusion shifts from a search for evidence to an acknowledgement of the limits of perception. The relentless human endeavor to point radio telescopes, like the venerable Allen Telescope Array or the future Square Kilometre Array, outward into the cosmos, desperately seeking coherent, artificial signals, might be fundamentally misplaced when considering the most powerful entities in the galaxy. Perhaps the true state of affairs is not that we are incapable of detecting them due to technological insufficiency, but rather that they have intentionally engineered the environment around themselves, and perhaps even subtly influenced the evolutionary trajectory of the entire galactic environment, to ensure that detection remains impossible for less advanced civilizations such as ours. They might have been observing us for ages, utilizing sensors capable of penetrating the dust veil and decoding the subtle fluctuations in gravitational fields or neutrino emissions, data streams we either ignore or cannot yet process. They would remain silent, patient, and entirely unseen, the ultimate practitioners of non-intervention or, perhaps, the silent wardens of the galactic ecosystem. And the infernal, chaotic, radiation-drenched environment of the galactic center, the place most inimical to human life, remains the most perfect, impenetrable fortress from which such an ancient, powerful, and cautious intelligence could orchestrate its existence, hidden in plain sight amidst the universe's most intense crucible of natural power.